What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, talking today about Baldur's Gate 3 because I am completely addicted to this. I have already played almost 50 hours of it, doing dungeons, failing a lot of dice rolls, and completely attempting to explore every aspect of this utterly massive world. Baldur's Gate 3 is the kind of game that's meant to be played for hundreds, if not thousands of hours, and I think a lot of people are kind of reacting to that. As I record this, it is actually one of the biggest games ever on Steam. It's also getting record-breaking amounts of fan reviews on Steam database, just showing how much people are appreciating this rather peculiar RPG game. So in this video, I want to explain why it's good, why it's unique, and why it's just so freaking fun to play it, even if you're bad at it. Let's discuss. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. So let's just answer the biggest question, because I have seen a bit of confusion about Baldur's Gate 3 on the internet. There's been this pervasive amount of people that are curious, but a bit confused as to how this works, because if you just watch a Let's Play or a streamer play like 5 minutes of it, this seems incredibly slow. In Baldur's Gate 3, you get to make your own character that can be one of 12 different classes, 46 subclasses, 11 different races, 31 different subraces, and go on your own impossibly big adventure. Now, if you've never played Dungeons and Dragons, this is basically digital D&D, which people have been trying to do for literally decades. Now, the appeal of tabletop RPGs like Pathfinder, or in this case Dungeons and Dragons, is that really anything is possible. As long as you can imagine it, you can punch dragons, you can seduce maidens, you can actually just invent spells that break the fabric of reality. Well, all of that is pretty much inside of Baldur's Gate 3, and let me tell you, it is just so freaking fun to fail or succeed in this chaotic adventure. As the story begins, you're a hero waking up with a terrible brain parasite in what is essentially like a weird spaceship. You manage to crash it, and suddenly your troubles get a lot worse. This bug in your head is going to hatch and make you into a big Cthulhu-esque monster at some point in the future. So now you and your friends are trying to find some sort of cleansing, some sort of magic, something that will actually break this, well, organic curse inside your skull. But here's the fun of it. This game can truly be played in any way you want. If you go into a city, you can make friends with the guards, bribe shopkeepers, drink a potion that lets you talk to animals, and start to make conversation with squirrels or cats or cows to learn about secret loot or juicy drama. You can burn the city down. You can kill everybody and just take the money. If you find a bunch of goblins, you can choose to butcher them or befriend them. The amount of depth in this game, though, is the appeal. It's the fun of it is that you're constantly trying to find a problem and then inventing a solution. So during the course of my 50 hours with this, I played all of it co-op with my best friend who is very into Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, she even has like a D&D tattoo on her arm. And this game works incredibly good with a friend. What we decided to do is not look at each other's character sheets on purpose. She played a druid and I played a warlock. This meant that I was dishing out a lot of very dark arts magic and using crossbows, while she was shapeshifting into stuff like spiders and bears. It made it where both of us were constantly confused and shocked by each other, and it made this adventure even more fascinating because as we're learning about the world and our characters are learning about each other, we, as real friends, were also learning about each other's characters. It's just such a great vibe that's always existed in Dungeons and Dragons, and somebody has finally managed to actually put that into video game form. But that's not the best part. I love combat. This game, though, is tough. You have to actually think very critically and very tactically. You can't just steamroll through this. You can't just straight up run into a camp and start slinging magic or try and sneak up and kill one vampire and hope the others won't teleport up and rip your throat out. You have to be incredibly aware of everything at all times, or you're going to get completely screwed. The fighting itself is done in turn-based combat, which means that each of you, according to your initiative, which is like your speed signifier, that tells you when you're allowed to act. And so you take turns hitting each other, healing, doing all sorts of one-use spells. This feels so much like those tabletop RPGs where you need to communicate. You need to talk to your friends. You need to talk to your party members. You need to actually go into their inventories and find out, okay, this magical item lets me mind control different styles of skeletons. So maybe let's explore some crypts for some easy XP. And if anything gets too chaotic, I'll start to mind control the people around us. The best part about this game, though, is that you can constantly come up with what seems like game-breaking solutions. At one point, we were tracking a hag, which, if you know anything about old school RPG lore, they're like big, huge monsters. Hags are actually incredibly dangerous. They love to eat sometimes entire freaking countrysides by themselves. Well, we cornered a hag, and she was honestly way outside our level range. She was ripping us in half. She had a bunch of different thralls that were under her command. It was a tough fight. But suddenly, I realized I had found a potion called Giant Strength, which multiplied my physical aptitude to insane degrees. I decided to drink that and try throwing her. I picked her up and I threw her off a cliff, and it instantly killed her. A legendary foe that was incredibly hard, that we had quests to deal with, we solved it in a single turn. And it was just so epic. I think my favorite part about this game, though, is that your stat sheet isn't just for fights. This isn't just about how much armor you have or how much magic damage you can burn people with. It's also about how good you are at talking. I'd say a good 70% of this game is crazy conversation and just times where you're doing dice rolls to try and not instantly die. If you're creeping through a swamp, it may make you do an intuition roll to see, are you aware that you're being watched or that you're being followed? If a trap is about to go off, maybe it's going to do a dexterity roll as to whether or not you can dodge it. But it also does this when you're actually in, obviously, the talks themselves. Sometimes you can flirt with somebody and they'll let you into a city early. Sometimes you can actually just talk your way out of being butchered. You can straight up just convince people to obey you, to join you, to leave you alone. And the best part is you get XP for that. I have talked my way out of some crazy situations and gotten a big level up. I've talked my way out of boss fights, which is somehow even more exciting sometimes than a crazy boss fight. I feel like hopefully you're beginning to understand just the amount of crazy depth of this, because it's not about spoilers. It's not about all the crazy locations and things that I personally have seen or done. It's also just that basically this game lets you go so freaking deep. Every time you level up, you get to learn new magic, allocate new traits, give yourself more health or more magic. There's just so much tiny details that makes it where your playthrough literally will not be like anybody else's playthrough. The developers have said there is over 10,000 ways to finish this game. They've also even said the fact that there's hundreds of hours of cutscenes. This game is just like 50 seasons of the best Game of Thrones of all time, and all of it is fantastic. Do you want to bang people? Do you want to get banged? Do you want to actually recruit a team of hookers to try and prowl the countryside as pirates? Do you want to go to camp and find a dog and bring it back there and then just play fetch with your dog by using the throw command? All of that is possible. Why is this game so deep? The only real problem I've encountered isn't even related to the gameplay or the graphics. It's some technical aspects. Randomly, the frame rate sucks. I mean, it happened frequently enough on my very high-end PC that it feels like something is technically wrong. Something about this is definitely just not quite right. On my Steam Deck, it does look surprisingly good for how weak this hardware is. Playing it with a controller works pretty good. This is actually coming out on PlayStation 5 in a matter of weeks, and I feel like it's going to look great on a console as well. The weird glitches, though, are just about visual stuff. Black screens, long load times. Once or twice while I was doing conversations in co-op, my partner could not see the conversation happening. It looked like I was just standing there like a mannequin. But these are things that are going to be fixed. It's difficult to put a score on a game like Baldur's Gate 3 because it's almost based on your imagination. It's centered on your concepts of the game itself. It's all about how much fun you are going to force yourself to get out of it. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for Baldur's Gate 3? There's a good chance you've already bought it, but tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.